This is the Washington Times front page for the last day of November, Wednesday, November 30th, 2022. Thanks for joining us. I'm George Gerbo. President Biden and congressional Democrats move with Republicans to impose a freight rail agreement on labor unions to prevent a crippling strike. Dave Boyer and Jeff Murdoch report the president met with the top four congressional leaders at the White House on Tuesday and secured their commitment to vote on legislation to avert a walkout. The push by Biden and Democratic leaders for a House vote to enforce the tentative contract on Wednesday infuriated unions and their allies. They said Biden, who bills himself as the most pro-union president in history, was betraying his supporters and ignoring workers' efforts to negotiate paid sick leave. Four unions have rejected the contract, and a walkout by any of them would be honored by all of them, idling more than 100,000 workers potentially. The U.S. Chamber of Commerce and numerous other business groups have urged the administration and Congress to intervene. The Pentagon says the Chinese military's rapid buildup is on pace to reach 1,500 nuclear warheads by 2035, nearly the number of current U.S. deployed warheads. Bill Gertz reports 2 years ago the Chinese Army's nuclear arsenal was limited to about 200 warheads. That's doubled to more than 400 today, the report said. China first tested a nuclear weapon in 1964, but it's long trailed far behind the U.S. and Russia in the number of warheads in its arsenal. The annual Pentagon report, which Defense Secretary Lloyd Austin calls the pacing challenge for American military planners, covers developments in China through last year. You've seen and heard the TV and radio ads, law firms encouraging ill veterans formerly stationed at Camp Lejeune to seek monetary damages from the government over the base's contaminated water. It's a multi-million-dollar campaign, and like past campaigns for mesothelioma and asbestos, Alex Warrior reports personal injury firms stand to make billions of dollars from lawsuits. Some of the personal injury groups involved in the litigation did not immediately respond to a request for comment about the legal claims and fees. Critics say they stand to have a big payday. They note internal data from the American Tort Reform Association reveals the trial bar has spent more than $41 million on advertisement specifically for Camp Lejeune. The North Carolina Marine Corps base, established in 1942, found in 1982 that 2 of its 8 water wells were contaminated. Veterans and families affected by the contamination are expected to have suffered from various forms of cancer and could have experienced birth defects. Veterans who can seek compensation are ones that served at the base from 1953 to 1987. You can read all of these stories at WashingtonTimes.com/front page. You can also find the entire lineup of Washington Times podcasts at WashingtonTimes.com/podcasts. The number of people who identify as atheists or humanists is increasing among members of state legislatures and in Congress, according to the Center for Free Thought Equality. Before the 2016 elections, just 5 officials serving in state legislatures identified as humanists or atheists. Mika Solner reports when legislatures convene next year, that number will increase to 70. Most humanist or atheist candidates won state house seats, but Representative-elect Eric Sorensen of Illinois secured a win for the group in Congress. Sorensen describes himself as spiritual, but not religious. 90% of congressional members identify as Christian, though representation among other religions has been growing. And finally, a Department of Energy employee is facing felony charges and has been placed on leave after being accused of stealing luggage at the Minneapolis-St. Paul International Airport. Susan Friccio and Jeff Murdoch report 35-year-old Sam Brinton is due in district court in Hennepin County, Minnesota on December 19th on felony theft charges. According to court documents, police used video surveillance to catch Brinton on September 16th taking a woman's hard-sided Vera Bradley suitcase from the airport's baggage claim area. Brinton, the first gender-fluid person in the federal government, was hired to serve as Deputy Assistant Secretary of Spent Fuel and Waste Disposition in the Energy Department's Office of Nuclear Energy and started the job this summer. Brinton could face up to 5 years in prison. Find all of today's front page stories at WashingtonTimes.com/front page or on the Washington Times app, and find us wherever you get your podcasts. Just search Washington Times in any major podcast app. You can also find us on Twitter and Instagram at Wash Times for breaking news, sports, commentary, and more. For the Washington Times, I'm George Gerbo.